Hello and welcome to the Health Detective Podcast by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. We bring you interviews from people who have conquered the trickiest of health challenges using the Functional Diagnostic Nutrition philosophy and similar healing modalities. You're going to hear from experts who have been through the ringer with their health issues and yet managed to come out on the other side. You can always visit us at functionaldiagnosticnutrition.com, but for now, here is today's episode. All right, hello my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Health Detective Podcast by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. My name is Evan Transu, aka Detective Ev, and I will be your host for today's show, episode number 435 of the Health Detective Podcast. I say that with emphasis because every time we say something this far into the 400s, I'm like, holy cow, I've been doing this too long. I'm kidding. I'm looking forward to another 400 episodes. And what's really interesting about this functional health space is there's always new topics to bring on. There's always new guests to interview and just hear their stories. So we're definitely getting into a topic we actually haven't touched on much today. So more on that in just a second. If you're wondering why I suddenly have an outline of green around me, it's because I'm using a green screen today. I've never really used one before. This is my transition background until we finally end up in Austin, Texas. I've told you guys about this. We have this amazing setup coming to you guys soon. I am honestly giving this gentleman in Austin, Texas, a small fortune for this, but once it's there, it's good to go. My wife can use it on her sales calls. I'm like, let's just get this done, figure out some creative way to write this off with the accountant, and we'll get this going for you guys. So thanks for bearing with me on my green outline today, but I feel like the background overall looks good. I just can't put my hands up too much. Okay, couple quick announcements. One, if you like this topic, I see quite a few of you on already, so it must mean that you like nerding out, then I hope that you join us for a free event tomorrow, August 12th, and on Thursday, August 14th. It's kind of funny. Our guest Laura was like, oh, I want to attend that when I was talking to her about it off air. So here's where you guys can find us. It's fdntraining.com/edge. So what we are doing for this event, it's called the Clinical Edge. It's the first time ever that we've taken only our clinical advisors from FDN and put them basically into 2 days of presenting. So we are going over things like MCAS, mold toxicity, perimenopause, Hashimoto's cases. You're going to hear from people that you might have seen before as well, including but not limited to Dustin McFarland, Whitney Morgan, Paula Reed, Brendan Vermeyer, Elizabeth Gaines. Clinical advisors at FDN are the people that we go to as graduates for for solutions to trouble cases that we might have, troublesome cases, I should say, or we just don't know a marker and we need some support, or we're diving into a new lab for the first time. So these guys and gals are about as good as it gets at FDN, and they are presenting live case studies to you tomorrow, August 12th, and Thursday, August 14th. And the best part is it's completely free. I think you do have to pay for replays if you want them, but if you can attend the event live or even some of the sessions, it is free. So just head down to fdntraining.com/edge. That's fdntraining.com/edge. We hope to see you guys there. Wow, they really like this peptides talk. Not to put you on the spot, but you do have a good small audience here for you, and it's not that small. So let me read our guest's bio, and we will move right into this for you guys. Laura Young is a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner that specializes in women's health, especially in the perimenopause transitional years. She is passionate about empowering others to create practical diet and lifestyle habits that are achievable and sustainable. As a previous teacher with a bachelor's degree in mathematics and health, she is ingrained in the most up-to-date data and research in the health space and is eager to teach her clients how to advocate for themselves and receive the care they deserve in a sick care society. She is also the published author of her first book titled Trial and Mostly Error. I love that. A memoir of life lessons. That's really good. A memoir of life lessons that has brought her to where she is today. She currently resides in Michigan with her husband and 3 children. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi. I'm so glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, apparently, some of the people are already glad that you're here. So if you're excited for this topic, you're here specifically for the peptide side of things, let us know here, because Crystal already threw in a comment. She said, so excited for this. I feel like I know Laura from the Hot Topics replays. So, that's cool. You got some FDN trainees and grads on, apparently. Let's start with this, Laura, and then I will make sure today, because again, I can tell when the numbers go up, they're usually here for this specific topic. So of course, I want to hear about your own health journey, but I think it's worth spending some time on the peptides thing a little more than we normally would today. So first question that we always ask everyone is, I would just like to know how you got into this space, what health symptoms were you dealing with, and when did they start? Because very few people get into this space just because they're bored.
Actually, I was a kind of little bit about getting into the space because I was bored, but I mean, I didn't have anything catastrophic for myself. There's a few things that I would say marked. My sister has celiac disease. So she went undiagnosed by traditional medical doctors for 23 years. She was very, very sick. So I did a lot of learning from her on that end of things. And my mom has always been, I think, ahead of her time. So I grew up in a house that was more holistically minded and all that kind of stuff, more integrative, I guess, an integrative mindset. And then I guess after my children, so I think this is when a lot of lifestyle shifts happen. Once I started having kids, I was like, what is going on with my life and my body and everything else? I've always been really like into exercise, health, nutrition, eating well. And once I had my kids, I like started exercising. I exercised all throughout my pregnancies, and then I got back to my fighting weight. I got pregnant again, and then I got back to my fighting weight, and then I kind of got pregnant again. And I think this kind of happens with women. And then all of a sudden I was gaining weight, and I was doing the same things I've always been doing, and I knew how to eat right, and I had done all my research, and I was stuck in this weight gain situation that was going on, and my hormones were changing, and there was so much changing, and I didn't understand why. And I actually had a friend who went through FDN, and I was looking for a place to go back to school because apparently I love school. I mean, I was a high school teacher, and then I have a master's degree in education, so I really have a passion for teaching and learning. But she went through this program, and I wanted a program that wasn't fluff, that's something that I was actually going to learn from. And I was like investing the money and the time into a program that I could apply at the end of the program. And so that's kind of how I stumbled on FTN, and it kind of been blossoming from there. And I've settled into this niche of like midlife, menopause, perimenopause, because I think it's very underrepresented and in the medical model, and that we need a more holistic, a whole total body approach, because I think our health system is very siloed. And when our health system is very siloed and a woman goes with a cascade of symptoms, which is perimenopause, is amongst others, no doctor really knows what to do with them. So that is just, and now I do a lot of community education. So I do public speaking where I live at like stores, supplement stores, and other places around in the community to help women feel more empowered in their own health journey.
I got to focus on this last thing for a second, because you might have seen me do this. I'm always telling our graduates to get out there and do talks. Does that work, Laura? Does that actually work?
So listen, you were the one on Facebook that you said something about a thing, and I was like, you know what? I'm extroverted. I was a teacher. I know how to stand up and talk in front of people. And so I started reaching out to all of my public libraries and then all of my like public places and doing my whole like sales spiel. And I love talking at supplement stores and at our like current health food stores and stuff like that. And it's awesome. It's so awesome.
So it works, right? It's not going to sell everyone in the store, but some people become clients because of it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. What a concept.
And it's very rewarding. It's very rewarding.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the whole point, right? And I hope anyone that is on any of these events that I get to host, I have the privilege of hosting for FDN, understands what we're about. Like, you own a business if you're an FDN, generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking. So you have to get sales. You have to have numbers. You have to have revenue. There's a way to do that with integrity, with morals, with ethics, while serving people. And honestly, what that usually means is there's going to be a large amount of people that actually don't ever end up working with you, that you still get to serve in some way. And then just by definition, Zig Ziglar said this, if you help enough people get what they want, you're going to get what you want. So some of those people that never work with you end up recommending their sister or their brother 5 months later, and you're like, I don't even remember that person. And it's like, I heard you talk at the supplement store or library, whatever it might be. So props to you for going out there.
It sparks something in them to be like, I'm going to go on my own healthcare journey, my own journey, and figure things out. So
yes. Yeah. Well, I will say this. I'm very glad, obviously, just personally speaking, that you never had any severe health issues. That's amazing. I'm doubly glad, though, for our podcast, because it means we can spend even more time on the topic at hand. Yeah, so these people are here to definitely hear about some peptide stuff. I'd like to know how you got into this world, because of peptides specifically now, because this is something that's trending, obviously. It gets a ton of engagement anytime we post something about it. And so we want to always make sure we're doing this, quote unquote, properly as FDNs. Right. And I think we have a unique approach and take with all of this. So I would just love to know, what was your introduction to it? What made you realize, holy cow, there's something here with these peptides?
So actually, I I went to my doctor because of my weight gain, and she said to me the same thing that I think a lot of women get. Are you really tracking your food? Are you sure you're working out enough? Are you sure you're doing all? And I was like, no, I am. I'm educated in this space. I know what I'm doing. And so I actually had gone and tried to look into some of the GLP peptides because I had been doing some listening on my own, and it was so demonized, right? Like GLP-1s were so demonized in the beginning of all of this. And I was like, there's no way I'm doing that. And then I started listening and to Dr. Tina Moore, who is amazing, on her podcast, and some other researchers in the space. And I was actually going and looking into it for myself, but also looking into it for my husband. And so we had got recommendations to see a specific nurse practitioner that was utilizing these in a proper way. And he got on some, and then I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this with you. We're going to do this together. We're going to like make it a thing. And so he ended up losing 40 pounds, and I lost it was just amazing. My own anecdotal evidence. I mean, within 3 weeks of being on them, my inflammation was non-existent. My whole body, everything was changing. But I had already had all of the pillars of health that we talk about in FDN in place before going into this. And I think that just makes it more optimal when you do that. And they can give you a real cutting edge if you're looking for something that is innately healing, that is natural, because we do produce 7,000 peptides in our body. They are made in our body. These are just produced synthetically to mimic something that we already have, or to help our systems regain function where they're lacking, or that are decreasing as we age. So some of these peptides are like very active when we're young, and then they decrease as we age, and aging is what we can have is illness, right? Things that can help happen downstream. So that's how I kind of got into it. And especially I just was like, okay, I'm going to do the minimal dose. I'm going to see what happens, because I'm really, really, really scared of getting on anything like that. And I was learning anecdotally myself, and then confirming with research that was coming out at the time, that these do have profound effects at minimal amounts, and they can help with a variety of metabolic functions. And there's so many ways that we can use these therapeutically that are just beyond weight loss, because some of especially the GLPs, if we're talking about GLPs, because those are like kind of the most popular and well-known and most researched, because we do have some of those approved from the FDA. They can be used for neurological function. They can be used for inflammation. They can be used for weight loss. They can be used for a whole bunch of like addiction, a whole bunch of things beyond weight loss. Although it did help me regain confidence in my body, in my structure, helped me heal some insulin resistance. It helped me. I was wearing I ended up wearing a glucose monitor and doing a lot of testing on what foods were agreeing with me. So it got me down a rabbit hole of all the total function. Now, I will preface this and say, if you are eating a whole entire bag of Doritos and then you just go to eating one Dorito, you're not doing it right. So I think that is the problem. And a lot of the problem was these doctors giving the medicine, but not having the appropriate follow-up. And this is what we hear at FDNs all the time, right? Like doctors are giving medicines and they're not counseling through. Where FDNs, we coach, we counsel, we give proper use. We are really integrated with the person, and the traditional medical model isn't necessarily like that. So I do say, if you are going to do these things, we got to get the pillars of health in place, and we got to optimize what we can, and they can be used as a tool in the toolbox. They're not going to be a magic fix, but they can help bridge some gaps or stimulate function to happen to get you to your goals. But they do need to be with someone who knows what they're doing, and someone who's willing to really collaborate with you on that journey, instead of it just being like, oh, here you go. I think that sometimes we demonize the medication when it's not the medication. It's either the dose or it's the prescriber who's giving it, who's not actually counseling people on its use.
So many things to hit on here. One thing just kind of important. I always put this on our YouTube. I always put this on our audio, but I want to say this directly on here. None of the things, guys, just so you know, it should be obvious, but none of the things that Laura and I are saying today are medical advice. Neither of us are doctors, but we're sharing something with you. You can get some information from it. You always got to go to the right people, your healthcare professionals, so that you can figure out what might work and be right for you. Also, just want to say hello to a lot of people. Hello, Deborah, Kelly, Paula, and you must be killing it with this topic, Laura. I do not think I've seen, that is Carl, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's your alter ego on here on YouTube. Correct me if that's not Carl. I'm so sorry, but I'm pretty sure it is. I have not seen him on our lives in forever, so he must be loving this, which is great. Okay. With that said, though, in terms of how these peptides can be used, the different categories, I think GLP-1s are what a lot of people are referring to. What's interesting is I got exposed to this because of one of our very own FDNs, Awais Spall. He's a chemist turned FDN, and it's exactly what you think. The guy is brilliant. He's a walking science experiment. And he was telling me when I had cracked my rib, because I had, well, there's a lot to this. I don't want to get into all of it, but because I was exposed to mold for over a year without knowing it, I'm pretty sure that's why I started to get so many injuries in a row. But that's not the main point. Mm-hmm. The point is, once I got to the third injury, it was just about to be summer. I was about to go to the Great Smoky Mountains with my family. And I was so upset that I got yet another injury after a couple weeks of physical activity. And I would not be able to hike with my family because I'd planned this whole thing. I got the Airbnb. I was like all proud of myself. Yeah. And it was supposed to be a family vacation that I'm actually hosting. And so I'm like, whatever, I'm desperate. I want to try this. I went and got BPC 157. I am not saying people's results might not vary. In 1 week, if you ever cracked your rib, for those that don't know, there's really not much Western medicine is going to do about it. You kind of just have to wait. But it's very uncomfortable. It can kind of make you feel like you can't breathe properly, even if you can. I went in 1 week from not being able to walk comfortably 2 miles to 7 days later, I was hiking a mountain in the Great Smoky Mountains and scaling it with my wife. Now, again, your results might vary. I'm not saying I had the worst cracked rib in the world, but gosh dang, was I sold on this stuff. You also mentioned something, I'll stop this here. I just want to put these disclaimers on. You mentioned something about the research around this stuff and what's FDA approved and not. The GLP-1s, guys, are actually some of the better studied ones. Even something like BPC 157, which is talked about all the time and is no longer, FDA recommended, let's say that. Even though that's well studied to a degree, there's a difference between large samples of human beings that have done specific studies with this stuff versus a lot of the rat trials. So just understand, even though they're prescribed sometimes, there are differences in the effort that was put into the science behind this stuff. Now, you could argue what the reason for that is. I'm not even saying that maybe there's not something sinister there. But the bottom line is some of these are way more researched than others, and some are way more researched in humans than others. So that's really important. And you correct me if I'm wrong. Would you say it's fair to say that the GLP-1s are generally better researched in humans than a lot of the other peptides, or am I missing something?
No, true, because whatever's FDA approved is going to go through phase 1, 2, 3 clinical trials. They're going to be peer reviewed. They're going to be, you're going to have, like you said, you're going to have that things are funded and they're researched appropriately. Now, I will say bioregulators are a subset of peptides, and those are they're all studied in humans because it was made in Russia. And if you can read Russian, go ahead and read all the research. But Dr. Cabestan is the one who developed bioregulators in Russia, and those are all humanly studied. There are some other ones that are just not FDA approved in the United States, but they're FDA approved in other countries. So that means, or they're approved for medical use in pharmaceuticals in other countries. So for instance, like thymosin alpha, that one is approved in 37 countries and it's just not approved in our country. So it depends on who you ask, where the research lies. So doing your own research is very, you would want to do that for sure and make sure that you know where you're sourcing these from, which we can talk about if you want the source.
Yeah, I'd actually love to get to sourcing. We'll probably get there soon. There's one thing I wanted to get to first, if that's okay. And it's I think you described it brilliantly, how we would approach these things as FDNs. Because what I do see happening right now is the GLP-1s and a lot of the other peptides, not to mention. What they're doing is they're popping up in these hormone clinics, very similar to like the TRT clinics. In fact, you'll often sometimes see these things all together. And I've experienced this stuff myself. This was probably foolish of me, but I went to these clinics because I'm like, all right, I want to get, Somorelin prescribed again. I moved to North Carolina at the time. I just want it easy. I couldn't get my people to ship it from Pennsylvania down there. Whatever, I'll go there.
Yeah.
That whole process, do I believe that they're well-meaning people? Yes. Do I believe that they're doing the best that they know how to do? All of that's great. Yeah. But I mean, as a 29-year-old man, first of all, I could have easily easily walked out of there with shots of TRT in my arm. They would have given me anything that I asked for. And I'm like, and I am
Yeah.
lucky enough to know a thing or two about this. What happens to the average person that gets very well done marketing? They come in and they're said, well, hey, you'll benefit from this stuff. And guess what, man? Most dudes, if they start taking a moderate dose of testosterone, you bet your butt you're going to feel good for a little bit. So then you think it's the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
So I'm very worried that these hormone clinics, so to speak, and these weight loss clinics are just kind of overprescribing this, doing it very loosely and at very high doses. Do you see that as a problem? Is that something that's happening in a lot of places?
Yeah. I will say there's a black market, like you were saying, so people can buy it themselves, or other places that are in business can buy it and distribute and not have good. I will say that testosterone or hormone actual, or like human growth hormone or testosterone or any kind of like actual hormone that you're in, like giving yourself, that can shut down normal production of that, right? So if you inject human growth hormone, you can shut down your own production of human growth hormone. Where peptides are just nudges, so they're not necessarily going to be like, oh, they're going to shut down a production of something else that your body's naturally doing. It's nudging your body to do something that is already supposed to be doing. So I would say that, but I would say, yeah, we can, obviously people can dose these wrong. They can, peptides should be cycled, so people don't cycle them. They're not using them like the GLPs. The lifestyle things aren't in place. They're not using them appropriately. We're not weightlifting. We're not, eating our protein. We're not doing those things. And then they're like, I have Ozempic face. I'm wasting away. And it's like, is it the drug, or is it because you didn't do it right? You didn't use it appropriate. Cranking doses. Yeah. Cranking doses is a huge thing. And I think some of the studied literature and things, you guys, we have to read it, because I've been reading these research. I'm getting better at it, but research articles are like, they're very hard to read and interpret, but we have to see what was the dose that they were giving the ants, or the ants, the rats, or what are the doses that they're giving the humans? Like, are we maxing out on the dose? Are we studying it at micro levels? Like, what's going on? And you have to be able to discern that in the research, because higher isn't always better. There was actually just a study published, I think June 2025, on retatrutide, which is the triple agonist that's coming out. It's in phase 3 clinical trials, and I think it's going to get FDA approved. But it was saying, like, it's at 12 milligrams, which is retatrutide's max dose, it actually wasn't as effective as 8 milligrams. So the dose being higher doesn't always mean better. And I do want, and it actually sometimes, a lot of the times it means worse, because the dose is the poison. So people who are saying that they're getting a lot of side effects from things, I think that the dose is too high. And I think that they're not using it appropriately, like, doing all the things we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be opening our detox pathways. We're supposed to be drinking our water. We're supposed to be making sure we're moving. Like, all of those things need to be in place. And this can be a tool. But it's definitely not going to be the end all.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm so sorry. Thank you for specifying that. I was not meaning to imply at all that something like testosterone and these peptides were the same thing. But the way that I said it, I could totally picture someone misinterpreting that. I just meant like these clinics. It's amazing that I came in specifically asking for Samorelin, and then they're like, and I've been prescribed it before, and they're willing to reroute to a 29-year-old getting shot up with TRT, and it's like, whoa. Just something for everyone to look out for and be careful, which kind of leads to this next point about sourcing. I do trust that the stuff that they would have given me would have been safe enough. I'm not really worried about that. But I think what's happening today is that people, if they do see the clinics at all, they see these super high price tags, and it's like $300 for a month's supply of something. Then they read on a Reddit forum or whatever it might be that, okay, I can kind of get this for like $70 somewhere else. I just have to constitute it. I'll figure it out. So can we talk about some of the very real risks that exist from just sourcing this from random places on the black market? Because it can get a little sketchy.
Right. So peptides you can get them, like you were saying, in like a powdered lipolyzed form, which is kind of like a rice bean or a powder. And then you have to actually put the sterile water into your own container. And that's called reconstitution, for people who don't know what that is. And the peptide kind of just melts in there, and then you inject it. There's a higher risk of lipopolysaccharides if you do that. There's a high risk of contamination. There's a high risk of a lot of things. And where did that peptide come from? Right? Like, who made that? Where was it made? In what environment was that made in? And then we have places, so there's that where people can buy that offline. I mean, you can go online. You don't have to have any medical license. You don't have to do anything. You can just buy it and reconstitute yourself. And those would come from research chemical companies, or it would come from a lab. So that's how they're designating themselves as entities anyway. And then there's also 503A and 503B compounding pharmacies. So 503A is more small batch. It has to have a prescription, but small batch for an individual, and it's made just for the one person for the prescription, and then it's shipped out. They are usually state board regulated. And then there's 503B, which is like large batch. So they could be like providers for like hospitals or something like that. They are compounding pharmacies. They're FDA regulated. They have FDA approved products that they're bringing in, putting together in their lab, and then they're making them sent out. So the final product is an FDA approved. Just like if you went and got like your hormones or something from a compounding pharmacy, right? Like that end product isn't FDA approved, but the ingredients are FDA approved. So there's those two types of pharmacies. Those come constituted together. They're made in a pharmacy. You get a prescription for them, and then they would be sent out to you. So those are the different ways of sourcing. And then you just have to see like, which one are you most comfortable with, and be careful where you're getting your stuff from, because there is that black market out there.
So what can people do then? And I mean, if you want to self-promote, that's totally fine with me. I don't really care. It's podcast a little bit different than other things. But yeah, where do you personally get them? Where do you feel safe with it? And because that matters to me. I mean, it's one thing to talk about peptides, the proper dosing, all that kind of crap. It's a whole nother category to be like, oh, I got something that was actually not even what I thought it was, or it's dangerous. That should not be what people are worrying about.
Yep. So as a practitioner, you can get them through myself, because I use a 503A compounding pharmacy that comes fully constituted and everything like that. There is also some different places that I like, that are labs that I would say could be reconstituted. Now, if these are practitioners and they're getting them for their clients, I'm going to say, don't do that. Make sure that you're getting from a 503A compounding pharmacy, or you're using a prescriber, because that's your liability, right? You're the pass-through who's getting these people their medication. And I wouldn't be wanting to say, hey, just go buy it off the black market to them. So that would be my best advice. You're also going to want to look at any place that you get it from. Third-party testing is important. A certificate of authenticity is important. So COA. So if they have those things listed, and then on their website or with wherever they are, if they're saying they're a compounding pharmacy, that it says they're like legal script certified, that they are a 503A or a 503B compounding pharmacy. Those things are super important when you're sourcing your peptides for yourself or for your clients. Yeah, that would be my best advice in your sourcing. And go through a practitioner, someone who knows what they're doing. I do offer practitioner counsel. So like if they're getting into the world of peptides and their clients are asking about peptides, and they just are like, I have this case, I want to review it with you. What peptide would you give to this person? I do that for practitioners. So it's kind of like being an advisor in that way. And then I also have my own clients who I do testing on and do all that kind of stuff. And then I would offer peptides to them as well if they're comfortable with using them. I do think it's a particular type of client too, where it's someone who has already done A, B, C, and D, like we talked about, and then wants to get into the world of peptides or has heard about them. But I would take some things into account before even talking to people about peptides. Do they have a history of cancer? Do they have a history of any types of like abnormal growths? Do they have a history of some of these peptides, even though they're very well tolerated and everyone says peptides have no side effects? I disagree with that. Anything that you put into your body has side effects. It just has to depend on the level of side effect or the benefit risk ratio, like we would do with any kind of medication. So I would just take that into account and make sure that your client is really aware of the benefit risk ratio, and then what type of peptide you're doing and what possible side effects that could be delivered to them because of that.
The more you talk, the more I like what you're saying, because well, you know what, it's very important, especially from the FDN perspective. Like when we're bringing this stuff on and talking about these things, we want to have a healthy conversation. We want to recognize something that, yes, is happening everywhere, but still with this foundation of an FDN, like we're actually thinking about the whole person and the bio-individual aspects of all of this. And I like that you brought up that these are not necessarily side effect free things. They're not just these magic bullets. Anytime anything's been a magic bullet, it's not a magic bullet, right? Or sold as a magic bullet, I should say. And that's what's always been something that admittedly I think about, because the BPC 157 experience, for example, I sat there in amazement that in 1 week I felt
Right.
better. And guess what? From a mental health perspective, because I had already been like out of physical activity, which is something I rely on to keep my mental health, in good shape.
Yep.
I had been out for almost
Yep.
6 months at that point. So yes, I do believe the pros
Mhm.
outweighed the cons. The first thing, and this is coming from, so I haven't read all the literature that there is on BPC 157, but the first thing that came to my brain when that happened, I said, wow, if it could fix something like that quickly, that to me implies there's something promoting growth here to some degree. And then you do wonder, yeah, if I had a history of cancer or something like that, would I want to be taking this thing? I
Mhm.
don't know, right? So when you say history of cancer, is
Right.
that the line that you're thinking on? Things like that, like growing it?
I'm thinking history. Yeah, history. Because like, if we're doing something that makes something grow, it makes everything grow. It's not just gonna. It like we can't just reinoculate a gut by saying here's the probiotic that you can take to reinoculate your gut because it's going to do everything. You can't take an antibiotic and have it not kill everything. Like it's not just gonna. It doesn't pick and choose. So yes, there is cascades of what a peptide does, and they are pretty targeted. But there are some things that and that's why I think short-term use, cycling, using it for the application that it's supposed to be used for, and then cycling is really important. We don't want to burn out our cell receptors. We want to make sure we're using it for what it's supposed to be. We need to make sure it's the appropriate dose, and you got to like I said, you got to be with somebody who's in this world and knows what they're doing, not just somebody who's handing it out to you, someone who's going to help you. So in my practice, when I do it, people have logs that they're filling out. I'm tracking everything that they're doing. We talk about injection site rotation. We talk about side effects. We talk about all of that. And then the more clinical experience, the better, right? You need somebody who's been kind of around it, seen people used it themselves, do all that kind of stuff so that you can do that. So especially like, let's say we're doing a thymus peptide. So that's for your immune system. So, okay, it's an immune modulator, but that doesn't work the same in every single human being. Like most of the time, like if you have what if you have an autoimmune disease? What if there's something else going on and it's overactive or underactive? So, you know what I mean? And not that peptides are stimulating. They're more nudgy. I like that word, but you never know. Somebody could have, like anything, someone could have a very bad reaction to some things. I would say if anyone has a bad reaction, most of the time it's a peptide reaction, which what I say a peptide reaction is injection site redness, because we inject most of these for efficacy. Or maybe some flushing can happen, like where you get kind of warm. But other than that, for the most part, you have to, like you said, you have to kind of just go on your own journey and figure out what works, and then partner with someone who's going to talk you through
Sure.
everything.
I see a very lively chat. I got to throw it to you guys. If you have any questions for Laura, please throw them in. I'd love to get some of the audience involved for this. One thing I did want to ask you, though, is going back to this FDN perspective here. All right. So one of the things I would view this as a supplement, at least in the sense that it is supplemental to the main work that we do. I just mean it in that sense. So
Correct.
for me, for
Yep.
example, I'm just saying for me personally, one of the last things I'd be worried about is what peptides they're on if they're still eating a standard American diet. Now, that's me. I don't have as much information as you. I can promise that just from hearing you talk already. So I want to know where you're at with that. Do you believe that there is a time and place where starting some type of peptide or maybe even a GLP-1 at the beginning of one's journey
Yep.
can be useful? I'd love to know your opinion on this.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because I think that they are twofold. I honestly think that if somebody is 450 pounds and we're telling them to completely change their diet and get up and move, and it hurts to move and they're depressed, and this has been a lifelong situation, that giving them something that is going to help them lose the first 200 pounds is going to be life-changing for them. In, like you said, motivation, confidence. It can give you those things up front. And then you have to have the mindset and the lifestyle that follows through with the other half of the journey. And then I think it's something like they're good for someone like me, where it's like I already had all of that dialed in and I was at a loss and I was feeling like everything was failing me. My normal practices were not working anymore. And I needed a boost to be able to get over the edge and heal some things that were coming on because of midlife. So I think that they can work both ways. I do think that they can work both ways. I think they can work acutely for you, for injury. I think they can work long-term when we cycled on and off and use them therapeutically when we need them. I think that all of that can be true.
Awesome. Okay. Last question about the just safety side of it. Then, you mentioned a few different categories of people. I heard cancer. I don't even remember the other two or three that you mentioned. Is there any people that, in general, for almost all peptides, you definitely want to be extra careful about? Now, all of these people should be going to their dang doctors anyway, but unfortunately, I know how things work, and even if we put our disclaimers on, people are going to choose to do their own stuff, which I would not recommend. But they might make that choice. So just so we can be extra safe here, cancer seems like it'd be super contraindicated. I know when I've taken Samoralin, there's something on the package about thyroid disease history, and I've never really fully understood that. So are there groups that should watch out for pretty much any peptide, or is it not that simple and it's more peptide specific?
No, it's not. I would say it's not that simple. Cancer is always a red flag for me. I think that's a particular population. If they've already had some sort of cancer, I think that's a particular population with hormone replacement therapy and all the other things. Not that they're disqualified. It's just maybe you would probably want to go through some additional testing, run some blood work, that kind of thing before going on. I don't think that there's anyone that's truly discounted depending on the type of peptide. But I think a thorough health history is very important.
Okay. I didn't want to make you nervous because I know you said you're slightly nervous, but you seem to be doing great. We have almost 40 people on live watching right now. So if you guys have questions, throw them in. We can stay on for a few extra minutes if you'd like to have them. I mean, we still have time in the podcast. I just mean I'd love to get to your questions because if you guys have hopped on for this, I'm assuming you have some. So I wanted to ask next what some of your favorite peptides are. And this is just personal, right? It's not like everyone has to copy this list, but like, what are your top 2 or 3 favorites that you can see yourself using on and off for a long time?
Ooh, okay. I like tirzepatide. I love it for the food noise and appetite regulation, so that I'm not snacking as much. And I like that I eat because honestly, okay. By the way, first of all, I'm a fast metabolizer and I'm hungry all the freaking time. So no, it does not knock out my hunger. So if you guys think like I'm not going to be hungry at all, for most people, like you still get hungry. That was one thing that I thought. I was like, are we going to take away my hunger altogether? No, I still get very hungry. But also I like that one for insulin. I think that's great for metabolic health. I think it's good for neuro health. I think it's good for any kind of like arthritic type pain and inflammation type things. I like BPC TB500 combo. So you were on the BPC 157. TB500 is great. With that, they work very synergistically. BPC is more acute, and then TB500 is more systemic. So when you do those together, it's a good combo. I love GHKCU, but not to inject it because it hurts. Like, you don't want to do it. Don't do it. It's so bad. So it hurts a lot to inject, but it's great. Like, there's like serums you can put for hair growth. You can put it on your face. So those kinds, like in a cream. Because like I'm midlife lady, I like, what else do I like? I think that Epitalin is really cool. It, so cool. I feel like if it just like helps with DNA and aging. So Epitalin, if you cycle that 2 times a year, I think that's really cool. I like SS31 for autoimmune problems and MOTC for mitochondrial health. Don't even get me started. I'm just going to
say, what don't you like?
I like I like tesamorelin. I think tesamorelin is awesome for somebody with extreme metabolic issues because it helps with visceral fat and that chokes out your organs. So anything that we can help to get visceral fat down is super important. So tesamorelin is another one of my favorites.
That sounds good to me. We have a question from the audience here. See, I love people that are super smart like that. We just have a woman on that clearly knows her stuff, says she does consults that I'm assuming are paid, and yet she's here with you right now and you can ask her questions. I would be doing that if I was the audience. So Paula said, can you address the concept of cycling a little bit more? How frequently? I guess that depends on the peptide, but can we just touch on the cycling in general? What does that actually mean?
Yeah. So cycling in general means you come off for a certain amount of time and then you go back on, so that we are not burning out cell receptors. But it depends on the peptide. So like, for instance, Epitalin is something you do 2 times a year. I would say like a tirzepatide or a GLP, people might be on it for a year at first to get to where they need to be. Like a year, I would say 18 months max. And then I would come off of it for a period of time. Well, like titrating down, come off of it for a period of time. And then you can go on it as maintenance. So you could go on it a couple times a year for like a month on or 2 months on, a few months off. So there's that's like the best way for continuing something. And then instead of just like hammering yourself with it forever.
Makes sense to me. Yeah, I've kind of just gotten the gist, and financially it kind of works out well too to cycle. Because like the Samoralin, when I was taking that, it's like $300 a month. Like, did I get good results? I actually did from Samoralin. I seem to respond better to it than some of the people I've heard out there, because they're like, they didn't even consider that one of the stronger ones. I've not tested it against other growth hormone secretagogues, to be fair, but I noticed sleep improves for me almost instantly. Recovery definitely gets better. And one thing that I would have never been able to fake this, so it proved to me that it was doing something. So for those that don't know, if you're taking like a growth hormone secretagogue, you would expect like almost like an anti-aging effect to some degree. Your skin could get better. I'll never forget this guy. He had to be in his 60s. Classic, like, you know, he's a man's man, so he wouldn't normally make this comment. We're playing pickleball, and he's the court next to me, and he said, "Are you using some oil or something?" I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, "I don't know. You look like 5 years younger since the last time I saw you." And that, to me, just hit me at that time where I'm like, what a weird comment to make randomly. There is no way he would have made that unless some change actually happened. It wasn't a change I noticed, because it was probably subtle over time, but like these things work. It just all depends on, you know, the person's budget and what's worth it that month. I don't know if I'd pay $300 every single month for that. I don't even know if I have to pay that amount. There's probably better options out there, but I just wanted to be double safe. So yes. Okay. The other thing I wanted to throw at you, if I can, is on the pricing subject. I know that there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all pricing. I get it. But like, for example, when you hear that I paid $300 a month for Samoralin, do you look at that as naive? Is there better pricing out there that's still maintaining the safety? Because that's what I always wonder. I'm willing to pay that extra to guarantee that I'm getting something safe. But I have a lot of ignorance around it, where it's like maybe I could have dug deeper to get something still safe at a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, you probably could have gotten that a little bit less expensive. And like you said, it is one of the like less, Sermorelin is like a little bit less on the spectrum on the, like you said, on the growth hormone secretagogues, like where ipamorelin, tesamorelin, those are going to be higher. CJC, those are going to be like more of the growth hormone pulse that you're going to get. But if it works for you, it works for you. And at some point, Sermorelin is the one that we see a lot out there because it used to be FDA approved. I don't know if you knew that. It used to be.
Well, it made me feel comfortable. Yes, that's why I actually did that.
So it used to be FDA approved for children that didn't grow. But it's just a little bit, it's subtle. And if it works for you, it works for you. See, that's the cool thing. If it's working and you're getting the effects that you want to get, then you could try them. I mean, like there's a bunch of ways. So I would say that it's a little bit on the expensive side for that, but like you said, you should be taking growth hormone 5 days on, 2 days off. So that's another thing to consider. So when we're doing growth hormone, anything 5 days on, 2 days off, you cycle it sometimes for 8 weeks, and then you come off for an equal amount of time or even longer. So there's the cycling part of it. But so it depends on your goal. So if it's something that you want to do a few times a year and you know you're going to invest in that, it's just like, you know, the ladies who get Botox.
Yeah. Well, and for those that don't know, this can definitely be used to enhance the physique a little bit. It's no steroid. It's not as good as that, unfortunately. But I noticed a difference, I would say, which has actually almost made me excited for more of the larger ones, because I'm so aware of my body. I've been doing so many things for so many years. So if I'm responding to something pretty fast, it's not really a placebo. And I'll normally get wife involved to be like, I think the shoulders are looking a little better. What do you think? Like,
are they?
All of a sudden, Samoralin's in the budget now for the family every month. All right, Carol Ann's got a question for you here. Have you done any certifications specifically to learn about peptides? And if so, which one would you recommend?
I actually wrote a course, my own certification course. So I have a course that's for sale. That I have. It's about 2.5 hours worth of content. I have a peptide cheat sheet and a quick reference guide included. And then I have a few slides that are all the reference documents or like the real research that had me build the course around it. So I would say that. So again, I'm a nerd. So I did a lot of my own research. I listened to a lot of podcasts. I read a few books. I have in my course, I have books that I recommend people read if they're wanting to learn more about peptides, as well as the people in this space that I feel like are trusted and advanced. So yeah, my course.
Where can people find that, by the way?
Oh, on my website. You can get it at www.totalwellnesssolutions, and wellness is just with one S, and then solutions.com. lytotalwellness@gmail.com. And then my email is lytotalwellness@gmail. So, yep, you can
I'm
contact
so
me there.
spoiled by Tracy. She like normally clicks this stuff for me, gets these captions going.
Yeah. Now you
Gosh,
know
I'm having to
she's
click
worried.
buttons today. I'm very spoiled here. I'm very grateful. So if you guys have any other questions, throw them in. If you're learning something, also let us know that. That's always helpful. I don't want to scare anyone here, but if I had time today, I wanted to throw this in only because I just heard about this through the grapevine. So I don't know if this is even true. One of the things that I had heard sometimes happens to people is they'll like inject, Samorelin or Summerelin, I think you pronounced it. And like all of a sudden, after a year of using it or whatever it might have been, they seem to kind of get some type of allergic reaction. Is that just hype online? Is that a real thing that happens? And if so, why?
I wouldn't say that. I would say sometimes I've heard from people using some that are just like, oh, I would say mostly what I'm hearing is like a welt at the injection site. And that like all of a sudden is getting worse over time or something like that. And that's just your body maybe not liking it anymore. I haven't heard of like a whole like systemic allergic reaction that has happened over time. So I wouldn't say that, but I would say like I think that we can also, like I said, like get kind of like it doesn't work anymore because we want to make sure that we aren't overstimulating anything and that we're coming off and going back on or coming off and going back on.
Good point. I will say that the ones that I have heard those stories about, which is honestly very rare, I don't actually hear it that often. It does seem like they were using it for some extended period of time, like way longer than you've recommended for anything. So fair enough. Cool. Keep going to audience questions. Thank you, guys. I'm like, we got a bunch of people on. Paula said, do you have an opinion on glutathione that you can share? And I feel very ignorant right now. Is that a peptide?
A glutathione is actually a peptide because it is actually, well, kind of. It's not a signaling
podcast host.
No, you're not. It's not a signaling peptide, but it is small. It's only 3 amino acids. So it's glutamate, glycine, and one other one. And so it's 3. So if it's 3, a peptide is normally 50 amino acids or less. So and a bioregulator, like I was saying, is only like 2 to 4. So I guess glutathione's a bioregulator because it's only 3 amino acids. But yeah, so it's not a signaling one, but obviously we make glutathione on our own, right, in our body. And it can be really good for detox and antioxidant support. But I would be leery because sometimes with people with mold don't do great on glutathione. So I would be optimizing detox pathways before putting in any heavy glutathione.
Very interesting. I actually, despite not knowing it was a peptide, I do have one thing to add to this, if I may. So, Paula, and it's not a standard test at FDN, but if you have ever done one of those genetic SNP panels, I was very surprised to find that mine, I don't produce glutathione very well, which I will say has been a common theme in a lot of the people that I've seen with similar health issues to me. So it's always fun to kind of look into because I do take that on and off every now and then just to be safe.
Yeah.
That genetic panel even recommended before if anesthesia, if I had to use it to take IV glutathione. I don't know if I've actually helped myself with that, but literally I had to go under twice since I got that genetic test for wisdom teeth. And actually, embarrassingly, both were wisdom teeth because I thought I could avoid getting the other 3 out and they were also impacted. So Health Coach Ev or Detective Ev makes a lot of mistakes in the health world sometimes. But either way, I was able to do that IV beforehand. It makes me feel a little better. Not sure if it helped that much, but something to know. And Naomi asked, is the course a certification? And guys, so a certification, it's a fair question. A certification sometimes is used loosely. Like even FDN, like that's not a official certification, even though you get a certificate. But I'm wondering with yours, like it's not like a legal certification or anything, right?
Okay. Not legal.
Yes.
Nope. And then I see what recommendations on books and podcasts. I would say, let's see, what books did I really love when I started doing this? Podcasts, I love Dr. Tina Moore. She's great. I like Hunter Williams is another one that's really good. And Jay Campbell, they do a lot on peptides. Actually, Jay Campbell's story is very interesting. He had a testicular injury in his 20s. Playing professional sports, and he was like pretty much disintegrating and dying like a month later. He had no hormone, he had a testicular energy, and he had no testosterone in his body. And he actually started on testosterone replacement therapy, and it saved his life. This was back in the 90s before testosterone replacement therapy was any a thing. And this like kind of got him down the road of peptides and hormones and testosterone replacement therapy and stuff like that. So he's very, very well versed in this space. I like some of Jay Campbell. He wrote a book on peptides. William Seeds is another one who he's written about 3 books on peptides. Dr. William Seeds, he's a good one to learn from. I think he's a cellular biologist. So he's like very like science. If you're like really into that, that would be a good one to learn as well. So those would be my recommendations.
Awesome. Dang, we're already at 50 minutes. Let me know if you guys want me to bring Laura back ever. Just put that in the chat. At least give me that in the chat if you'd like me to bring her back, because I kind of have to effectively wrap this up. So one thing I wanted to ask, though, because we have a lot of FDNs on, I can see the names. I want to make sure everyone kind of understands your perspective on this, because I already feel like it's a very healthy one. No pun intended. That was a pretty lame joke. But as an FDN now, when you are taking a client, I mean, like, again, this stuff is, mostly prescribed. So it's not like you can be out there being like, all right, Evan, my client, you're going to take, 500 micrograms of this every single day. That's not how it works. So how are you facilitating an ethical and, quite frankly, legal discussion with your clients about these things while still maintaining the integrity of being like an FDN and stuff? Like, how do you do that?
So I work with a telehealth company that is prescribers. So they have a specific amount that they're getting through 503A compounding pharmacies. So it is a prescription from a medical doctor. And I partner with a prescriber as well for actually from compounding pharmacies, like I said, not from like research chemical companies or labs or anything like that, where they're going through there with an actual prescription. So it takes any legality off of me. Right? Because they're getting a prescription from a physician. And then I'm just the one who's their health coach because we're working together probably in a program or any kind of testing.
Okay, cool. I see quite a few bringer backs. They always do this late to me. All right, I'll take Mitchell. And then if Carol's is a question, I'll take that. But I'll do one more question for you guys. All right, Mitchell said, I'm so sorry for messing up this name, Mitchell, and you have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm pretty sure he lives local to my parents. I think he came into my business. Let me know if that's not true and I'm crazy. As an FDN, how do we get our hands on peptides? You have to be a physician. So you did just touch on that to some degree. So What is the service directly? How could they do that? Do they talk to you? What do they need to do?
Yeah, they can talk to me if they want. The telehealth company that I have, I do 2 things. So I have a telehealth company that has some, but then the other company is just like going through my prescriber, because every 503A compounding pharmacy is going to have a different formulary. So if it's something I can't get from somewhere, I will get it from another. I have partnerships with 6 compounding pharmacies through a prescriber that I work with around the country that ship to all 50 states. And then you are getting it through a licensed provider.
Cool. Awesome. All right. And then I put your stuff back on. It's totalwellnesssolutions.com. And that's not a typo, guys. The wellness, she said, has 1 S. So solutions, of course, starts with an S as well. So totalwellnesssolutions.com. Reach out to her there. If we could get a thank you in the chat, that would be amazing. And then what I will do for you is ask the signature question here. And we will definitely bring you back. Don't worry. So we'll get something in the schedule to figure that out. Maybe we could focus on I'm thinking like we'll do a vote in AFDNP, maybe like on like 1 or 2 specific peptides or a specific topic. Yeah.
That'd be cool. And we can
signature question for the show. It can be a peptide. It doesn't have to be, though. It definitely doesn't have to be that. If we could give you a magic wand, you could wave it and you could get every single one of our viewers and listeners to do just one thing for their health, whether that's getting them to start doing one thing, or you can get us all to stop doing one thing. What's the one thing Laura gets us to do?
Ooh. Do things every day that bring you joy. Do one thing every day that brings you joy. And the reason I say that is because I think especially the women because I'm mostly talking to women in midlife, we lose the joy. And sometimes, or we're really integrated with our kids or our life or everything outside of ourselves. And sometimes having a moment to bring it back into yourself and finding the joy in every day in what you do, and doing something you love is just going to make your life like so much better.
Awesome. I like that one very much. Guys, let's get a thank you in the chat for Laura. And if you liked nerding out on this topic today, well, you can nerd out with us, on August 12th and August 14th. FDNtraining.com/edge. We'll be doing 2 big days, 3 sessions each day, I believe, with our clinical advisors, MCAS cases, mold toxicity, Hashimoto's, perimenopause, going over the labs with these folks and their actual case studies. It doesn't get much better than that at FDN. So I'm looking forward to seeing you there. It's a free event, FDNtraining.com/edge. And Laura, thank you again for coming on today.